Welcome to WatchMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 20 greatest first-person shooter video games ever made.
Rolling Hills is over yonder, and the bathysphere station is as well. And then straight on to Ryan.
Number 20, Crysis.
I still can't reach JSOC on the secure channel. Must be another jammer. We need to find it and take it out.
In the grand odyssey of video game companies striving to make games look more realistic, Crysis was unlike anything we had ever seen at the time. From the detail and texture work to the way water moved and shimmered in the light, Crysis was a game that really pushed the limits of the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. Gameplay-wise, it was really fun running around and landing headshots with a bow and arrow, as there hadn't been many FPS games at the time with archery integrated. The only reason it gets placed this low on the list is how games have further evolved in visuals, making Crysis look a little less impressive by today's standards. Even the remasters couldn't recapture that magic.
Nomad, there's a KPA convoy headed your way.
Number 19, Singularity.
My leg is hurt. I can't walk.
Once upon a time, Activision did allow their studios to work on other games that weren't Call of Duty, even FPS games with creative and innovative mechanics. Before time control powers became about as common as crafting mechanics, there was Singularity, an FPS survival horror where you can use time to manipulate the environment. While it wasn't as flexible as most games can make time control work today, Singularity was among the first to explore this gameplay concept and do it rather well. As a bonus, the story was well written, the gunplay felt great, and the multiplayer component was pretty fun, which is why it was so upsetting to know that nobody bought the game back in 2010. A few 100,000 copies was not enough to make Activision happy.
Spartan Team Titan 1 Actual, you are now entering Russian airspace. Proceed with caution.
Number 18, Borderlands 2.
Thanks, sugar. I've been meaning to upload these to the EchoNet.
We won't lie, there are a couple of things about Borderlands 2 that really have not aged all that well, particularly its sense of humor. But aside from the outdated references and memes, Borderlands 2 truly is a compelling FPS RPG. It wasn't just the jokes that made the game memorable. It was the tragedy around Handsome Jack, the epic battles against those rich jerks at Hyperion, the friends we made and lost along the way, and of course, all of the kick-ass guns you can find from completing missions and challenges. Let's not forget the robust selection of character classes that came with 3 skill trees each, all of which would lead to vastly different playstyles. Since Borderlands 2, Gearbox simply hasn't succeeded in meeting that same level of quality, which admittedly is kind of tough to meet. Number 17, Apex Legends. By the time Apex Legends stormed into the Battle Royale scene, fatigue had already begun to set in for the audience. I mean, we had Fortnite and PUBG already. What exactly does this new Battle Royale have to bring to the table? Well, a hell of a lot actually. Apex Legends brought a more frenetic pace to the scene by giving the player a ton of freedom and movement with sliding, wall running, and ziplining. What's more is that every location on the map was built as if it were a standard deathmatch map from the early 2000s, and they all work really well. Just a few games will show anyone why folks are deeply enamored with Apex Legends to this day. Number 16, Superhot.
Super hot.
A lot of indie shooters tend to get swept under the bus, but this VR title was something every FPS fan needed to play. The shtick in Superhot is that time only moves when you move. The second you stop making significant movement, the game comes to a crawl, giving you some time to maybe assess your situation and adapt. Here's the thing though, it's not as easy as it looks. You'll need to prioritize targets more efficiently as later levels begin throwing in more enemies from all directions. Yeah, Superhot may be one of the toughest VR games out there, but it's also one of the best FPS games ever made because of it. Number 15, Fear.
Don't worry, you'll be fine.
Let's roll.
At the time Fear launched, there wasn't a whole lot of genre blending going around, but when you hear about a new horror game with FPS mechanics, who wouldn't want to check that out? The thing about Fear is that it's a constant mind game. As you venture forth, you'll have a harder and harder time discerning hallucinations from reality, making it a lot harder to conserve ammunition. It's a game that doesn't test your reflexes in the way that most games do, but rather your ability to control them. So much in Fear's design really shouldn't have worked here, and yet it did so beautifully.
She cannot see in your mind, but perhaps you can see into hers. A life of waking from one nightmare, only to find herself deep in another.
Number 14. Titanfall 2.
I can throw you across the gap.
That's insane.
I am incapable of insanity, pilot.
I hope so.
Titanfall was already excellent when it came to the multiplayer side of things with its unique mechs to pilot and fast-paced gameplay. The thing that made Titanfall 2 shine the brightest was the sweet inclusion of an immersive campaign. And what a campaign it was! Between the immersive environments and the compelling story of Jack Cooper and BT, Titanfall 2 was an explosive amount of fun, which makes it frustrating in how EA almost killed the game by launching it next to Call of Duty and our next entry. Thankfully, the game has been seeing a much livelier player base as more and more folks have discovered this title through Apex Legends, as well as sales where the game's been deeply discounted several times. Number 13. Battlefield 1. On paper, an FPS centered entirely around World War I sounds like the antithesis of what an FPS should be. Not only did DICE find a way to make it work for the multiplayer side of Battlefield 1, they came up with an ingenious way to properly convey the gravity of this point in history. Rather than focus on one individual or one country, Battlefield 1 allows you to experience World War I from the perspective of several different countries. It was a tactful approach to a topic that isn't explored often enough in military shooter games. Number 12. Left 4 Dead 2. We had a really hard time deciding between this and the original Left 4 Dead. After all, both games are fun in their own maddening ways with how many zombies they throw at you. In the end, Left 4 Dead 2 took the spot for two major reasons: the maps and the AI director. Not only does each map boast fun set pieces for fights, the AI director also helps make every playthrough feel new by increasing difficulty and even changing some aspects of the layout. It's a true technical achievement, and in an age where developers and publishers seem to never want their games to end, it's kind of shocking how no one has tried replicating Valve's approach to level design here.
Anyone needs a pill?
Number 11. Team Fortress 2. Character classes were nothing new to the world of FPS games. However, the most diverse it ever got was this guy carries a pistol and grenades, while this guy carries a rocket launcher and a sniper rifle. What Team Fortress 2 excelled in was taking those classes we were familiar with and giving them unique abilities that could change the tides of battle. No longer was it about which weapon you preferred more. Now it was about which class was going to give your team the edge whether you were defending a point or pushing a payload. That level of diversity in gameplay, along with the endless ocean of cosmetic items, is why Team Fortress 2 still remains relevant today despite being more ancient than most online games. It's purely timeless. Number 10. Metroid Prime. Nintendo and first-person shooting. Who would have guessed this would turn out well? Released for the Nintendo GameCube in 2002, newcomer developer Retro Studios went about the unenviable task of conveying the Metroid franchise's take on atmospheric action platforming in a first-person perspective. Yet, to this day, the grim yet visually varied locales of Talon 4 remain ingrained in gamers' memories, with combat and exploration carefully balanced. Prime found a way to maintain an often haunting mood and engage in thoughtful world building while still remaining true to the series' fundamental elements. Even now, it's hard not to admire the craftsmanship here. Number 9. Unreal Tournament. Though the arena shooter has basically gone the way of the dodo these days, Unreal Tournament had basically perfected the formula over 15 years ago. Taking the famous Unreal Engine and its amazing graphics even further, it offered a bevy of game options that offered the players more variety than usual. Outsmarting bot AI that could hold their own against seasoned human players, and brilliant weapon and level design. The game was remarkable for being a polished final product offering smooth gameplay, almost flawless performance and functionality, and most importantly, offered an incredibly exciting and fun experience. With multiple sequels and community mods following it, it's no surprise that Unreal Tournament is still going strong after all this time. Number 8. BioShock.
You get to the bathysphere in the rolling hills. That'll take you straight to the devil himself. And then all debts will be paid in full.
If there's an art to the construction of an FPS, then this is quite the masterclass. BioShock took the gaming world by storm, enchanting players with its Art Deco design sensibilities and the tragic beauty of its underwater setting. Yet, beyond the blend of grotesque imagery and classical influences, the game proved exciting in its gameplay, which emphasized using superpower-esque abilities called plasmids in tandem with normal weapons. From the visceral combat to the plentiful modification options, from the top-notch vocal performances to the intriguing themes at play, this is an experience worth remembering. Number 7. Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare.
Bravo 6, Hammer's at Bingo Fuel. We're bugging out. Big Bird will be on station for evac in 10. Copy, Hammer.
The first Call of Duty may have helped to define first-person shooting in the new millennium, but this modern military shooter was the fireworks show that changed everything. Modern Warfare upended the series' norms at the time with its shift to present day, focusing on large-scale political conflict very much ripped from the headlines. Its truly intense action set pieces and effortlessly shocking story turns made for an outstanding campaign, remaining a source of many people's favorite gaming moments. On top of that, Call of Duty 4 propelled online console playing securely into the mainstream, securing once and for all that PC games no longer had a monopoly on online gaming. Number 6. Quake 2. Quake was a good first foray into 3D, but it was Quake 2 that ended up making its mark in the gaming world. For starters, Quake 2 simply looked better, particularly in terms of color, lighting, and architecture. Ditching the dark castle theme for a sci-fi military setting on another planet, the game also expanded the single-player experience with a more story-driven focus with multiple objectives per level, something used in many shooters to this day. With a rebalancing of weapons, well-designed maps, and a vast mod community, multiplayer deathmatches were never more intense. 20 years later, and the fragging is still going strong. Number 5. GoldenEye 007. Anyone who grew up around video games in the late 90s will tell you that GoldenEye 007 is probably their favorite game of all time. Rare made history by trailblazing the first console first-person shooter that gave PC shooters a run for their money. The realistic and atmospheric single-player experience was without equal. Stealth was a big part of the game as well, a first for an FPS of any sort. People will no doubt have fond memories of the endlessly fun and intense split-screen multiplayer matches as well. GoldenEye 007 revolutionized the genre, and it's no wonder it's considered one of the greatest games of all time. Number 4. Halo 2.
Gentlemen, we're lucky to have you back. Go ahead, Cortana.
No one can deny that Halo Combat Evolved was a great title. Yet, it's difficult to argue its sheer quality and ubiquity could compare to its first sequel. Narratively, Halo 2 picks up not long after the original game, but chooses to expand this series' mythos by offering two parallel storylines to follow, switching between the Master Chief and the newly introduced Arbiter, thereby providing two different perspectives on events, made for an intriguing and surprisingly deep story. Beyond that, Halo 2 made worthwhile tweaks to its predecessor's already exemplary gameplay, adding in features such as dual wielding and the ability to board vehicles in motion. That the game was also built for intuitive online matchmaking shouldn't be surprising. Where would Xbox Live or even Microsoft be without this flagship titan?
Listen, Tinkerbell, don't make me...
Then where? Where would someone go to activate the other rings?
Why the Ark, of course.
Number 3. Counter-Strike Global Offensive. Sometimes, all you need is a lean, mean fighting machine. Case in point, Global Offensive opted to refine the Counter-Strike game's time-honored tactical shooting and emphasis on quick play. It presents maps familiar and unique to this game, introduces new modes such as Arms Race, and brings in a handful of new weapons like the Firebomb. However, the main priority of Global Offensive is polishing the formula. The gameplay is tighter, maps benefit from cleaner visual design, and swift reflexes and knowledge of one's weapons remain key. Plus, there's a certain amount of fun to be had messing around with cosmetic items and additional content courtesy of the Steam Workshop. Number 2. Doom. It's hard to find any video game that has had more of an impact on popular culture than Doom. The significance of Doom, both as a video game and first-person shooter, cannot be understated. While Wolfenstein 3D may be the grandfather of the FPS genre, there's no question that Doom put them on the map and kept them there until this very day. For much of the 90s, the term Doom clone would be used until the term first-person shooter became solidified, which goes to show how Doom overshadowed everyone else in the market. From movies to comic books and to real-world controversy, Doom's impact was felt beyond the world of video games, and shooters wouldn't be the same without it.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure to go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Number 1. Half-Life 2.
Hey, Dr. Freeman. I've been hoping you'd show up. Got this airboat all gassed up and ready to go.
Turns out the right man in the wrong place really does make all the difference in the world. Released in 2004, Half-Life 2 carries forth its predecessor's immersion-first approach to gameplay and expands upon it in astounding ways. Front and center were the physics. Whether using the iconic gravity gun or not, the physics on display in Half-Life 2 allowed for puzzles that made real-world sense and a world that felt reactive and alive like nothing players had ever seen. But the brilliance of Half-Life 2 was more than just fancy technology. It taught you its system without tutorials, told you its story without giant swaths of exposition, and let you behave like a real person using real-world logic. It was smart, it treated its players like they were smart too, and it's our choice for the best FPS of all time.
Guess those sirens are for you, huh? Good thing you found us. You're not the first to come through here by...
This is the Freeman. The Combine's reckoning has come.
Which one of these first-person shooters were your favorite to play? Let us know down in the comments.